In this video, we're going to take a look at recreating this Hockey Mom design. Now, this was an actual design that I did for the request actually was for car decal, and I didn't have any type of Hockey Mom design previously designed, so I had to design it, and of course, we'll use CorelDRAW to do it. Now, I actually did not have a hockey stick either, so I had to draw this in CorelDRAW, and I will show you how we did that pretty quickly. All we did was draw out a rectangle, and then we draw out a little bit wider rectangle, something like that, and then all I did was rotate this rectangle a little bit to get my angle the way I wanted it. And then I just actually took this node and snapped it right to this one. So we had something kind of like that. Not exactly, but kind of. And then I just take the two and I weld that together. So now if I look at it in wireframe mode, we can see this a little bit better. You can see how that looks. So then it's just a matter of understanding CorelDRAW to make some modifications. So we're going to right click and choose to curve, and that will give us kind of a rounded edge, just because I think that looks a little bit better. And we can adjust the curve, how far we want that to stick out and so forth. But that looks pretty good. And then back over here, I need a little swoop right here. So we'll just double click and double click here. And wherever it is in the middle here, these two nodes, we just delete. See? And that gives us a swoop. And then from there, we can, of course, adjust that swoop to get it exactly what we would want. And we can kind of fine tune that later. And then the same thing here, we just double click and double click on either side of that node and let go of that node and right click and choose to curve. And that will give us a nice little swooping curve there at the bottom. And again, we can fine tune all that here in a little bit. Now, as far as for the other end, you can see we kind of have a little slope here. So all I did was just drag this node down and click on either side of that node up at the top. And that should be a straight line segment. And it is, so we'll hit right click on it to curve. And then you have that piece. And then same thing here, either side. Right click to curve. And bring that out a little bit however we want it. So you can see now it's nice and rounded. And again, we would come in here and fine tune everything, but at least it gives you a basic idea of how we created it. Now I can, like, for example, I could take all these nodes and just drag them down here to make that a little bit more representative of our original piece. So that's basically pretty simple. Doesn't take a lot of CorelDRAW skills to create a very simple shape. So now I already have the shapes created. So the next step is to look at adding stones to the design. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that here in CorelDRAW. So we have our object, and all we're going to do here is specify stone size, which I typically use is 3.3. We're going to use a 0.4 spacing, and we're going to go ahead and add stones. And you can see what it's added here. Now, right now, one nice thing is these stones are actually attached to the path itself. You can see that as I move that around. And you can see it did a great job adding those stones with a defined spacing and so forth. So the next step then, you've got a little bit of crowding right there, but that's not a huge deal, but that's really the only stone that is out of place. So the next thing we need to do is break those stones from its path. So now the stone's been broken from its path, and I'm going to actually select that path, and then we're going to use the contour tool here inside CorelDRAW, and we're going to contour to the inside 3.5 millimeters. And the nice thing about working with CorelDRAW and Rhinestones is that once you understand these basic settings, you're going to get very predictable results every time. Because we're working with primarily SS10 stones, anytime we want to create, like in this case, we want to create a fill inside our outline stones. And anytime we do that, what you're going to find is this offset of 3.5 millimeters, that's one of the parameters that you're going to have to remember, because that is going to be the offset that you would use all the time in all of your designs. So we'll go ahead and apply that offset, and then I need to select that line and right click and choose break apart. Okay, now you can see it's real thin here and it's thicker here, and that's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it has to be. So we'll go ahead and add stones to this. Now let's go back to the enhanced mode for a moment so you can see this. The way this works is any whatever the default outline is and the default fill color, that's what is going to be the default fill and outline of the objects of the stones when we add them. So for example, I can go ahead and let me just right click all of these, and because these are all individual stones now, I can actually give them a different color that will pop a little bit more for us. There we go. So now we can see that a little bit better, and I'm going to right click here to turn off my outline, and then I'm going to pick a fill color that's contrasting fill color to our outline. There we go. So now when I go to add stones, we won't have an outline, and it'll have a nice contrasting fill color. So then we'll go ahead and choose that add stones function, and you can see it did a great job adding those stones, didn't it? Now these are the little tips that I want to share with you. If you're going to use CorelDRAW for doing rhinestones, there's a little tip that I could share with you. Back over here, you see these top and bottom stones, they don't exactly line up with one another, but that's okay, because that is super easy to fix, and in most cases it wouldn't matter. In this case, if we look at that, go back to the original design I did, you can see that in fact I do have all those stones lining up one on top of another. So not a big deal. We'll address that here in just a bit. But we do have a situation here where we have one gap of stones right here. We have a gap, and how do we address that? Well, all we're going to do is grab our pen tool and draw us out a path. And the beauty of it is we don't have to be really precise at all. So let's just say we're sleepy and we add it crooked. That's fine. Let's go ahead and give it a contrasting outline color so we can see it. So there's our path, right? We just did it, you know, just a really mucked up mess of a job adding our path, but that's fine, because when we go ahead and add our stones, we've added our stones down. Now we can go in and finesse. We can finesse that path. So right here, you can see this is not centered, so let's move the path and the stones come with it, so we can really fine-tune exactly where we want. And if you come up here to not snap to objects, then you can it's a little bit easier to fine-tune exactly where we want that to be. And then I can come down here and I can move this over to kind of center that up. See, now that looks much better. And then right here I can actually right click on this and hit to curve and draw this out. See, so I give it a little bit of a bend there, and then I can go ahead and bring this down maybe a little bit, and there we have that sweeping curve. Now, I don't know that there's room for another stone right here. I don't think there is, so we're just going to go ahead and leave it right at that, and you can see that really looks pretty good. Now, how do we address this issue over here where we wanted all these stones to be all in a line? Well, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and break this stone. So we'll go ahead and choose break stones. So now all of these are individual stones that we can manipulate. And then the same thing here, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and break those stones too. And now all these stones are individual stones as well. Okay? So what I would do here is just pick a point where I want to start. And I think for me, I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. We have a function that allows us to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these orange stones here, and we are going to mark it for selection, and then I'm going to select an area here, and I think I'll start maybe right here, and then choose the select by fill, and then I can go ahead and delete all those stones that I have selected, or do something with them. In this case, I'm going to delete them. So then I have a decision to make, because what I want is I want these two stones to line up with one another. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete one stone. I'm going to take this stone and hold my shift key down and hit L on my keyboard. That'll line those up. And then what I can do here is I can finesse these couple of stones. Now normally, you wouldn't probably get all, do all of this just for one design, but for this particular case, I just think it looks better to spend a little bit more time on it. So we'll do that, and then so we have this stone right here. Now, up here we have our nudge value, so I'm going to type in 0.4 millimeters, and if I take these two objects and follow the sequence here, so I've taken those two objects, I selected them both, I hit the plus key on my keyboard, I then grab, let's go back to snap to objects, I then can grab this node and bring it over to this node, and then hit my left arrow key. And then from there I can duplicate it automatically, and CorelDRAW is going to duplicate that spacing. So I hit Control D, 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 D. See? And so I can just go all the way over, till I get to that point right there. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is just take one extra stone, left click and drag, and then right click and drop right in there. See, so that looks great. And then I can come back over here, and I don't know if I don't think I have room in here, but let's just try anyhow, because that gap does kind of bother me a little bit. But maybe if I finesse this, and the thing of it is, when you're dealing with rhinestones, you only have the space you have. So we have a little bit of gap here now versus the extra gap there, and there's really no way around it. It's just, it's one or the other. So you just have to, pick your poison, so to speak. But it just depends on, how you like it. And honestly, and once you have it in rhinestones, that little gap probably honestly isn't even going to be noticeable. So then back over here, you can see what we did is we just took some of those stones and we colored them a different color. So that's what we would go back over here and do, is just go ahead and select one of these stones for selection, and then we would go ahead and select this whole group and choose the select by fill function, and just give it a contrasting color, something like that. And now we can go ahead and get rid of our paths that we used for this. So we get one more here. There we go. So now we have all of our paths. We've got rid of all of our paths. And then for the other colors, well, what we could do, because those are really easy to select, let's just select those and just give them a different color. So we'll come in here and do the same thing. We'll give it a different color. Same thing down here. We'll select those, different color, and we'll select those. There we go. So there is our two-color design for the hockey stick, and the actual color is irrelevant. We just need something to differentiate to send to the cutter. So then the final thing, of course, is to add in our text, and all of our fonts start with EST, and you can see here. Let's see here. Let's go down to this EST Modern, and I know that all of our fonts for SS10 we add them as 120 point size. Okay, and then we'll just right click and drag, and there we have it. So we can go ahead and position this like so. And we have a great looking decal design. The final step to this would be to go ahead and group everything together. And then we got to create a contour line for the decal material. So we're going to contour to the outside. I tend to use 3 millimeters. You can use whatever you like, but I like to use 3 millimeters. We'll go ahead and do that contour, which it did there, and I'm just going to right click and break that contour group apart and give it a contrasting color. Oops. We also have to ungroup. Let's see what we did here. Okay. Yeah, we can go ahead and give it a color, and then to finish this off, we have a lot of little areas inside that contour. If we go to the wireframe mode, we can see this better. But see all these little dots? Those are all nodes. And so we would take our shape editing tool and we would clean all that up. So we'll go ahead and just come in here and we'll clean all that up. There we go. And then same thing up here. And all of this internal structure here, we would go ahead and get rid of. So we just have like kind of like a silhouette for our decal material. Those are all things that the cutter would want to cut, and that would just take extra time. So we don't want to do that. And like here where we have a real tight area, I would just come in here and delete all that and right click on that curve and send to line. And let's just go ahead and get rid of all that internal structure over here. And even like right here where it's really tight, I would probably do it too. Add a couple of nodes across from one another. Delete that little cavity of nodes and then right click to line. Oops. When you have situations like that, no worries. We just right click and choose cusp. Right click and choose cusp and then to line. And then we don't have that issue. And then right here I probably would do the same thing. I would just come in here and delete all of this, and then that takes us back to that line there, and that looks pretty decent. We could, if we wanted to further finesse this a little bit, instead of having these little jags coming in, we just go ahead and delete those all the way across. I don't think they're really necessary, and it just makes that process of cutting that outside line a little easier. And then to finish this, we did it to everything else, so we might as well come up here and do it. So we have instead of all these little zip zip zip, we'll just come in here and delete all of this because this is going to become a stock design. You know, I can use this over and over again. I'll just go ahead and really clean this up quite a bit across the top here. There we go. So you can see it's just a basic straight line. It looks really good. And then all these extra nodes at the bottom here, I'd probably do something with those too. So that clean that up, and I'll right click and choose to line, and that clean that up pretty good. And then we have a lot of extra nodes around the outside, and I might just come in here and see if we can't reduce those nodes a little bit. So we'll just come in here and select all of them. There we go. Click on reduce nodes. It doesn't look like it's going to do much for me here. So there is the finished. Go back to the enhanced mode here. So there is the finished design with our decal contour. And that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so I'm right here, so I'm going to just go do a fill. And when you get a fill, then you get all your fill patterns that you can use. So raster, hatch, multi-inline, user-defined, random, fractal, fractal and random, and optimize. So let's just start with raster, and we'll just see what it is. Angle, I'm going to put it back to 0. And then we'll do circles, and we'll do them in diameter 3.2 because you said you wanted to see 10s. Right?
Right.
Okay, and I'm just going to make color you want. Doesn't make any difference. But we want to use an alternate color. So since this is blue, I want to use an alternate color.
Okay.
Because if I have blue and blue stones, then I won't be able to see it.
Right.
So that's all that's for. And then again, here's my number of outputs. When I'm making a design, I can set my outputs here. When I'm using an existing design that somebody sends me or that I use out of one of our Rhinestone books, then I would be able to go into the other one to use the output. I don't need the rest of these stones. I don't. There is a option to use the rhinestone simulation so it looks like rhinestones. Looks pretty. It takes up a lot of room in your computer, so I don't use it. But it's there if you want to print it out for your clients so that they can see, or yourself, you can. I'm going to use collision recognition of brown, so topaz. So I want to use an alternate color from the rhinestone color so I can see which ones I'm replacing.
Okay.
And really, I already have it pretty much set up. Click OK. Creating the objects. So if I do that fill that way, since it's that narrow along the long edge, that's what I get.
Okay.
So we'll grab that one. So let's move it down. F4, let's F3. Let's go and do hatch. And then we'll try that one. See what that one looks like. I didn't change anything because I'm using all the same stuff. So I get a little better there. Oops. Control Z. Let me catch up. Sure, when you want to move something, you can't get a hold of it. Okay, so go ahead and move that one down again. And then I might give this one an angle. And execute. So there is an angle. So I would say this one is probably best.
Okay.
I would also go into my objects, and it'll show me what my intersection ones are, my rhinestones. So there's one up there, and there's one down there. And I can delete those, or I can keep them, or whatever I want. So I deleted them. And then in order to make it look a little more like a hockey stick, I might just go and grab a section. So it selects all those. Control C. I'm going to scoot in a little bit. And then I'm going to do Control V. Oops. So maybe that's a little better for me. And so I can move it around and stuff. So they're all individual products, so you can move them, you can resize them, you can do whatever you want. Let's say we wanted that one, we like that one. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Two more. Delete, delete. And then let's get rid of this one. This one. Computer's slow this morning. So if I like that one, but let's say I thought, oh, those are FS10s, and right now I'm at 7.841 for my size, my width, and then 1.7 tall. Do you like those FS10 stones?
Well, that's what I use primarily, yeah.
So you can move them around, you can reset them, whatever you want. But if you wanted to, you could, and we don't really care about color. That doesn't make any difference as far as we're concerned. But if you wanted to change colors, oops, or you wanted to add in a stripe to that or something like that, if you want to change colors, I just go over to my layers, select it, go over to my layers, and then double click what color I want. Maybe I want them to be purple on the thing. Oh, that's exciting. So it's as simple as that. And if I want this section to be blue, I can go ahead and double click on my blue. Does that make sense?
Yep.
See that? Okay.
Yep.
So now what if I want to change them and I want them to be a different size rhinestone? I can go into my macros, and remember we had that one that said replace objects?
Right.
I can go in and I can tell it that I want to make them 2.4 for an SS6. I'll give them a different color, set those all up. Now they're all 2.4. So deselect. If you were in Corel trying to do this, and here I can go over to, or pretty much anybody else's, anytime you resize something, you have to go and replace each and every one of them. And with this, we can select by color. So I could go back. I could do this. I could select one of the blue. I could go over to layer and see how it highlights that blue.
Right.
I can tell it to, I'm going to click on it, I can tell it to select all the blue ones. So now it's just blue ones, right?
Right.
I'll put them back. Now I can tell it that I want to go to my macros and replace those objects with SS6 in green. There we go.